The gym doors creaked open, and when they saw her simple dress and quiet smile, they laughed, just like they did back in high school. But what none of them knew was that the forgettable girl they used to mock now owned 4 companies and had just bought the entire building they were standing in. What happened next? Nobody, and I mean nobody, saw it coming. Welcome to Dignity Tales. Let's uncover what really happened. The gym doors swung open to reveal a sea of pastel dresses and stiff blazers, each attendee's expression carefully curated for nostalgia. Amber Hayes stepped through, her chestnut hair pulled into a low bun, wearing a simple navy dress that brushed her knees. Conversations stuttered and died as dozens of high school faces, once fierce rivals, now antiquated versions of themselves, turned toward her. She paused on the polished hardwood floor, feeling every whisper curl around her like a cold draft. Murmurs rose and fell. Who was that? Didn't she leave town after graduation? Amber smiled, folding her arms loosely. She'd learned long ago that silence spoke louder than words. As classmates drifted past, she caught sight of Claudia Merton, whose designer heels clicked with deliberate confidence. Claudia's painted smile faltered when she registered Amber's unassuming presence. The same students who once scrawled insults on notebooks now offered tight-lipped nods, unsure whether to greet her or avert their eyes. A cluster by the trophy case, assembled alumni athletes, gestured toward her, their laughter halting mid-chuckle. Flashbacks flickered in Amber's mind. The yearbook photo marked most likely to be forgotten, Cassidy's prank that left her soaked in glitter after prom, and the collective pause when she'd raised her hand to volunteer for the debate team, only to be met by blank stares. She had carried those moments long ago, but this evening she carried something else, quiet certainty. The lighting softened around the school mascot mural, and the principal's voice crackled through the speakers, welcoming everyone back. Amber drifted toward the bleachers, letting the buzz of strained greetings wash over her. She found a vacant seat beside an old friend. No, someone she'd once barely known, Ethan Lee, who offered a kind smile without question. He nodded toward the refreshment table, and she stood, weaving through the crowd as eyes followed her every step. In her hand, a slender envelope lay folded, a reminder of the speech she'd prepared, though she had no intention of giving it tonight. Here, in these halls of judgment, she was no longer the girl they remembered. Tonight, she was simply Amber Hayes, and that was more than enough. She drifted through a circle of classmates gathered near the concession stand, the clink of plastic cups punctuating their chatter. Amber paused by the soda machine as 2 women, Sophie and Marlene, leaned in close, voices hushed but sharp enough to slice the air. "I heard she still can't dress," Sophie murmured, glancing at Amber's tailored blazer and dark jeans. "Who wears that to a reunion?" Marlene smirked, lipstick too bright for the dim gym light. "Maybe she thinks she's above us now, like she grew up to be somebody." Their words floated through the room, carried on the hum of small talk. Amber felt the sting but held her posture, feet planted firmly on the scuffed floor. She knew these whispers were less about her clothes and more about the stories they told themselves, stories of old power, old hierarchies. A nearby group of former cheerleaders giggled mid-sip, tossing knowing looks Amber's way. She met their eyes briefly, offering a graceful lift of her chin before turning to the alumni band tuning instruments on the makeshift stage. Music buzzed, guitars humming in anticipation. The rhythm reminded her how steady she'd become. Sophie's voice rose as she caught sight of her friend Claudia across the room. "Claudia, look, there she is." Claudia, a queen bee whose reign had faded, reacted with forced surprise, lips parting in a silent "oh." Their eyes followed Amber as she crossed toward a cluster of history teachers swapping anecdotes. A whisper trailed behind her. "Isn't it funny how the quiet ones always end up with the last laugh?" Amber paused, her reflection caught in the gym's mirrored trophy case. For a moment, she studied the woman who'd endured nights of taunts and pranks. That girl would have crumpled at such sneers. But tonight, sneers were just noises, faint echoes in a far-off memory. She walked on, the band's first chord ringing out like a signal. Amber disappeared into the crowd, letting the music fill the void and carry her toward whatever came next. In that whispered sneer, she found fuel, quiet, potent, and entirely her own. Even amid laughter and reclaimed friendships, a silence settled when someone mentioned Amber Hayes by name. Across the gym, an old classmate from the yearbook committee, Jonas Pierce, stopped mid-conversation, brows knitting as he searched the room. "Do you remember Amber Hayes?" he asked, gesturing to those nearby. A few shrugged, others shook their heads, faces drawn in thought. Jonas stepped forward, voice just above a murmur. "She was the one always sketching in the margins, right? Never said much, but everyone knew her art was incredible." A ripple of recognition passed through the small circle. "Oh, right," someone said, recalling the watercolor landscapes that once lined the hallway. "She won that state art award senior year, didn't she?" "I think she skipped the talent show to study the paintings at the art museum," Jonas added, eyes lighting as the memory warmed. "Miss Delgado even tried to recruit her for the art club." He smiled, a hint of admiration in his tone. Quiet but brilliant. Nearby, a teacher who'd called roll in homeroom nodded. "She always had a way of seeing things we missed. I remember the time she corrected my chalk drawing of the solar system. Pointed out Mercury was too big. I still laugh about it." Murmurs of yes and "I forgot" mixed as more faces turned Amber's direction. Even Sophie, who'd sneered moments ago, paused to consider. Marlene, clutching her champagne, looked unsettled by the respectful hush. Amber stood beside the bleachers, pretending to fix her shoe, but listening. Each recollection was a small bridge, spanning the years between the girl she'd been and the woman she'd become. She remembered those sketches, the museum trips, the moments of quiet appreciation. What she'd once hidden felt suddenly honored. Jonas cleared his throat. She's here, isn't she?" His question carried gentle surprise, as if rediscovering a favorite book on a shelf. Heads turned, eyes finding her in the haze of reunion lights. Amber straightened, shoulders back. A gentle smile curved her lips, both greeting and acknowledgement. In that moment, she was neither past nor future, but simply the present. Remembered, seen, and quietly remarkable. Amber's lips curved into a soft, knowing smile as she navigated the crowd, a subtle shift that changed the room's energy. She paused beside the punch bowl, lifting her chin to catch the reflections of fairy lights strung above. In those reflections danced the faces of classmates who once dismissed her, now caught off guard by the quiet confidence she wore like a second skin. Her smile met Jonas's approving nod across the room. He raised his cup in a small toast, and she returned the gesture before turning toward the doors. There, framed by the glow of the hallway, stood Claudia Merton, her designer clutched tighter in tense fingers. Claudia's painted smile wavered as Amber approached, the memory of past slights hanging between them like an unspoken contract. Amber offered her most genuine smile yet, one that held no bitterness. Claudia blinked, eyes flicking to the simple lines of Amber's navy dress and then to her own ornate gown. For a split second, Claudia's posture relaxed, as though Amber's unguarded warmth unlocked a hidden door. Then, uncertain, she pressed forward, voice soft. "Amber, it's been a long time." The words felt formal, unfamiliar, but Amber's smile broadened. "Too long," she said, her tone easy. "How have you been?" A pause, and Claudia inhaled, finding steadiness. "Good. Busy." She studied Amber's face, as though looking for hidden motives. Amber held the gaze calmly, the silence a gentle invitation to genuine conversation. A flash of remembrance crossed Claudia's eyes, perhaps of late nights spent cramming for exams while Amber's sketches captured their world in delicate detail. Perhaps of a kindness Amber had shown when no one else would. The moment stretched until Claudia's shoulders softened. "I'm sorry," she murmured, voice sincere. "I didn't realize." Amber's smile never faltered. "Apology accepted," she replied quietly. Around them, the reunion soundtrack rose. A chord struck, laughter renewed, conversations spinning new threads. Claudia exhaled, relief washing over her features, and lifted her glass in a tentative salute. Amber tipped her head in return, that quiet smile shining in her eyes. In its gentle curve lay forgiveness and strength, a promise that the past no longer held sway. As she stepped away, the room seemed a shade kinder, the reunions hummed gentler. And behind that simple expression, Amber carried the power to reshape every memory in her wake. Clusters began to shift as the organizers announced the icebreaker game, designed to nudge old friends into new territory. A spotlight hovered over a spinning wheel mounted on a portable stand, each slice bearing a prompt. Share a hidden talent, name your favorite book, who inspired you most? Faces brightened with curiosity and mild apprehension. Amber joined a small group gathered near the wheel, where Ethan Lee stood, ready to give it a spin. He caught her eye and offered a reassuring smile. Without a word, she stepped forward and gave the wheel a gentle whirl. It clicked past options before settling on, what accomplishment are you most proud of? A hush fell. Amber inhaled, feeling the room tilt its focus toward her. She met their gazes calmly. I founded a nonprofit that provides art therapy to underserved communities, she said, her voice steady. A ripple of surprise passed through the group. Murmurs of, that's incredible, and I didn't know, that drifted around her. Julie Ramirez, once the yearbook editor, stepped closer. Art therapy? She repeated, eyes shining. Tell us more. Amber nodded, smiling softly. We work with local schools and shelters, she explained, using creativity to help people process loss and build confidence. Behind her words lay years of dedication. Late nights crafting lesson plans, tireless fundraising, and moments of quiet triumph when a child's eyes lit up over a brushstroke. When she finished, the next spin beckoned. Ethan took his turn, laughter following his answer about accidentally setting off a fire alarm during his physics demonstration. The game rolled on. Parents shared embarrassing toddler stories. Athletes recalled injuries that taught resilience, and longtime friends confessed dreams still in progress. Each introduction peeled away layers of familiarity, revealing achievements and quirks that high school hierarchies had once obscured. Amber listened to them all, her earlier calm now infused with genuine engagement. She asked questions, offered encouragement, and laughed when prompted. Around her, classmates leaned in, eager to connect. By the time the game ended, strangers had found common ground and old acquaintances rediscovered respect. Amber stepped back, watching the renewed energy ripple through the room. The ice, once thick with judgment, had cracked, letting warmth flow in. And at the heart of it, her simple presence had become the catalyst. Smudged ink and crooked stickers told a story of hasty preparation as guests rediscovered their name tags pinned to lapels and dresses. Amber paused by the registration table, where a volunteer offered her a fresh sticker. She smiled and shook her head, finger tracing the neat script on the one she'd already affixed. Amber Hayes. Beside her, Mark Collins squinted at his tag. Mark Collins, and winced. He peeled off the messy I and joked, proof I'm stuck in 11th grade spelling class. Amber laughed, reaching out to steady the sticker as he reapplied it correctly. Around them, others swapped tags when they realized they'd grabbed the wrong names. Hi, I'm actually Diana. No, I'm Thomas. I think you're wearing my sister's. The mix-ups felt symbolic. After 20 years, names and faces no longer aligned neatly. Amber wandered through the clusters, overhearing corrections and introductions. Julian, that's Julin, someone reminded the DJ, who'd announced, "Welcome, Julianne," with enthusiastic flair. Laughter bubbled up, replacing earlier stiffness. She spotted Marlene, whose tag read Helen M., an unfortunate mashup, standing awkwardly by the trophy case. Amber approached and offered a spare. Marlene hesitated, eyes down. "Thanks," she murmured, peeling off the scrawl and revealing beneath it the faded outline of her actual name, Marlene Hughes. As the new tag settled, Marlene looked up, meeting Amber's eyes. A small nod passed between them, a quiet acknowledgement of fresh starts. A sudden commotion drew Amber's attention. The head of the organizing committee, Mrs. Delgado, had realized her tag said Mrs. Delgado. Amber joined the rescue mission, supplying a perfectly printed replacement. As Mrs. Delgado reattached it, she patted Amber's arm. "You've got a sure hand," she said with warmth. "Thank you." By midnight, dozens of name tags have been smoothed, realigned, or replaced altogether. What began as forgotten labels became gentle icebreakers, opportunities for apologies, shared laughter, and renewed introductions. Amber stepped back, watching classmates peek at each other's corrected tags, offering compliments on handwriting or printing. In that simple act of fixing names, they rediscovered identities beyond high school labels. And in those small moments, Amber's steady kindness reshaped every introduction that followed. Glasses of sparkling cider caught the amber glow of the gym lights as the reunion committee gathered center stage. Amber drifted forward, drawn by the gentle clink of toasting, and slipped into the circle forming around the microphone. A hush fell. This was the moment everyone anticipated, a collective celebration of shared history. The committee chair, Mr. Thompson, lifted his glass. "To the class of 2005, he began, voice wavering with genuine emotion. "May we remember not just the pranks and prom dates, but the lessons we learned and the people we became." Heads nodded in unison. Some eyes gleamed with nostalgia. Others glistened with unshed tears. Amber raised her cider, her reflection shimmering in the glass. She thought of freshman jitters, cafeteria lunches spent scribbling stories, and the late-night study sessions she'd never mentioned. She thought of the friends she'd lost touch with and the bullies she'd outgrown. As she lifted her gaze, she saw classmates locking eyes with memories, old flames smiling sideways, the debate champion perched on his toes, and the shy art kid silently fixing a tag. When the toast ended, a chant of cheers rippled outward, and Amber joined in, voice blending with hundreds. The sound felt like a bridge across 2 decades, uniting past and present in a single note. She let the warmth of that shared moment wash over her, reminding her how far she'd come. As the applause died down, Amber caught Claudia's eye. Their earlier exchange gave way to a mutual understanding. This toast was for both the visible and invisible journeys. Nearby, Ethan raised his glass just to her, a silent salute that needed no words. Amber's simple smile returned, softer now, touched by gratitude. The nostalgia was sweet, but what mattered most was the renewal it sparked. Glasses lowered, conversations reignited, and the reunion's pulse quickened once more. In that fleeting toast, they honored not only the girl they once knew, but the woman Amber had become, steadfast, compassionate, and quietly unforgettable. Amber lingered by the dessert table long after the cupcakes were gone, drawn instead to the stack of old yearbooks displayed on a nearby table. Their glossy covers bore signatures and doodles, fragments of forgotten dreams. She picked up the class of 2005 edition, thumbs brushing over faded ink. Across from her, Raj Patel, former mathlete turned software engineer, sidled closer. He'd once ignored her in homeroom, but tonight, his posture held genuine interest. "Do you mind if he asked, gesturing at the open page, showing Amber's art club doodle of a phoenix mid-flight. She shook her head and allowed him space. His finger traced her sketch. "I never knew you drew like this," Raj said softly. "Where did you learn?" Amber thought of community art classes and passion projects fueled by quiet determination. "Mostly on my own," she admitted. "I studied local artists and practiced whenever I could." Raj's eyes lit up. "You should consider showcasing some work," he suggested. "I know a gallery owner friend who's always looking for fresh talent." Amber raised an eyebrow. Opportunities had seldom presented themselves so freely in her youth. Nearby, a group of former band members clustered, tuning guitars and arranging microphones for an impromptu performance. Their laughter faded when they noticed Raj's discovery. "Wait, Amber Hayes, your sketches?" Pete, the drummer, asked, leaning in. "You mean the artist behind those amazing murals downtown?" Murmurs of recognition rippled through. Amber felt warmth bloom in her chest. The curiosity surrounding her art extended beyond nostalgia. It hinted at new connections and respect. As Pete fetched his phone to show a photo of her mural by the coffee shop, Amber realized this was more than reunion small talk. It was the first spark of genuine curiosity, a chance for classmates to see her talents rekindle old admiration and ignite fresh possibilities. She closed the yearbook gently and met Raj's hopeful gaze. In that moment, she embraced the unexpected intrigue she'd ignited, ready to explore where it might lead. A sudden hush fell when Amber navigated past the bleachers and overheard Liam Carter's voice, sharp and laden with old spite. He stood with a cluster of former jocks, arms crossed, grinning with that same cruel ease. "Remember when she volunteered to announce the game scores and forgot the quarter?" He taunted. "Kept everyone waiting 10 minutes. His friends laughed, but their laughter felt hollow, echoing off memories Amber had fought to leave behind. Her heart stuttered at first, the old sting of embarrassment flickering in her chest. She recalled the day in the announcer's booth, her voice trembling as she misread the scoreboard, the players on the field exchanging confused glances, her cheeks burning hotter than the summer sun. Afterward, whispers had trailed her down the hallway like vultures, and she'd fled into silence. Amber froze momentarily, fingering the edge of her coat. Then she straightened, drawing on the calm steadiness she'd built over the years. Stepping closer, she offered a polite smile that held no invitation for mockery. "Actually," she said, voice soft but clear, "that was my first time doing announcements. I was learning, just like everyone is tonight." Liam's grin faltered as Amber continued, "And I've since announced hundreds of events at my foundation's fundraisers. Maybe you'd like an invitation to the next one." Her tone held nothing but fact. No anger, no pleading. The quiet confidence in her words was sharper than any retort he could muster. Around them, others paused mid-conversation, caught between curiosity and discomfort. Liam opened his mouth, but shut it again, brow furrowing. The cheering echoes of the gym's past had lost their power here. Instead, Amber's composure reshaped the dynamic, making his mockery appear small. A gentle ripple of applause rose, first a single clap from a nearby teacher, then others joining in. Liam's friends shifted uneasily, and he swallowed hard, cheeks flushed. "Well," he muttered, voice unexpectedly low, "good for you." Amber nodded, offering a nod of thanks to those who'd stood with her by remembering her accomplishments. As she walked away, the old wound felt sealed, not erased but transformed into proof of how far she'd come. The gym's echoes settled into a peaceful hum, and Amber moved on, leaving the past where it belonged. The swing doors to the school library creaked as Amber slipped inside, expecting little more than dusty shelves and half-forgotten memories. Instead, she found a handful of former classmates gathered around a long table, books and laptops spread before them. At the head sat Maya Chun, whose cheerful invitation caught Amber off guard. "Amber, come join us," Maya called, waving her over with genuine enthusiasm. Amber hesitated, surprised by the warmth in Maya's eyes. Years ago, Maya had been the captain of a science club, always kind but tangled in her own circle. Now, her smile was unguarded. As Amber approached, Maya introduced her to the others. Ramon, who confessed he'd skipped math that day to watch Amber sketch landscapes at the art fair. Priya, who admired Amber's nonprofit work. And Marcus, the once shy chess champion, now a community organizer eager to collaborate. They'd save her a seat by the window, where sunlight spilled over a stack of local art magazines featuring her foundation's events. Ramon pushed for a cup of coffee. "We thought you might need a break from the crowd," he said with a grin. Amber accepted, the warmth seeping into her palms. Around the table, conversations flowed effortlessly. Technical challenges, upcoming gallery shows, ideas for community outreach. Amber found herself leaning in, fully present, contributing insights and laughter. A gentle camaraderie filled the room, unburdened by old hierarchies. Here, she wasn't the girl who'd once been glossed over. She was a valued voice, respected for her experience. Maya slid a tablet across the table, showing photos from current art therapy sessions, vibrant murals, beaming children, volunteers at work. Amber's heart swelled at the familiar scenes, but also at this new acknowledgement from peers who once barely noticed her. When the bell rang, signaling the evening's end, the group lingered reluctantly. Priya clasped Amber's hand. "Thank you for everything you're doing," she said earnestly. "And thank you for joining us." Marcus nodded in agreement. "We'd love to help out if you ever need us." Amber gathered her things, gratitude shining in her eyes. As she stepped back into the reunion's hum, she carried more than confident strides. She carried the unexpected welcome of companions who saw her for who she truly was and valued her presence without reservation. Amber followed Maya through a narrow side corridor that led away from the gym's bright lights into the quieter backstage of the auditorium. The sound of tuning instruments grew louder, muffled by heavy curtains and thick walls. Behind the curtain's folds, she saw the reunion band, old classmates transformed into musicians, tuning guitars and arranging sheet music on stands. Maya waved to lead singer Cole Rivera, whose voice had once echoed through crowded hallways as homecoming king. He smiled warmly. "Amber, thanks for coming back here. We'd love your thoughts on the set list." Surprised, Amber peered at the song list scrawled across a dry erase board. Classics from their senior year, mixed with heartfelt originals penned by band members now chasing music careers. As Cole played a soft chord, Amber felt the air shift. This was more intimate than any stage performance she'd known. She suggested adding the song she'd written lyrics for in creative writing class, but hadn't shared then. Their faces lit up at the memory. "I can't believe you still remember that," said drummer Lena Brooks, rolling a drumstick between her fingers. They gathered in a half circle, Amber at the center, offering feedback on tempo, lyrics, and transitions. Her perspective, shaped by years running events and coordinating volunteers, brought fresh ideas. The musicians listened intently, scribbling notes. For the first time, Amber wasn't a spectator. She was part of the creation, shaping the reunion's emotional heartbeat. Between riffs and harmonies, they swapped stories. Cole's recent gig at a charity concert, Lena's music scholarship, Maya's work in environmental advocacy. Amber realized how much depth lay beneath their polished exteriors. The band's laughter echoed in the cramped space as they joked about past missteps. Cole's off-key solo and Amber's forgotten announcement, both now anecdotes that bound them together rather than divide them. When a break was called, Cole clapped Amber on the shoulder. "We couldn't have done this without you," he said, voice sincere. Amber's heart fluttered with unexpected pride. Stepping back through the curtains into the full glare of the auditorium, she carried that glimpse behind the curtain. The knowledge that collaboration and trust could transform old roles, revealing new strengths in every familiar face. A soft glow lingered in the gym as the band's final chord faded, and Amber drifted toward an alcove where alumni profiles were projected on a screen. Among the familiar faces, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, one image paused her breath, a photo of herself, standing before a colorful mural, captioned Founder and Director, Hayes Art Initiative. She hadn't expected to see her full title here. Ethan, standing beside her, noticed her gaze. "They slipped that in," he said with a grin. "Thought it was time everyone saw the more behind the girl they knew." Amber smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness. She studied the slide. Images of smiling children painting under her guidance, local murals brightening city streets, awards ceremonies honoring her work. Each frame whispered of dedication and impact. As the projection shifted to the next alumnus, a hush fell. Amber's moment had subtly shifted the evening's tone. Conversations paused, and she heard snippets of discussion. "I had no idea she did all that. That's amazing. She's really made a difference." The words felt like gentle currents pulling her from past judgments into present recognition. Moved, Amber turned to Ethan. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered, voice soft. "But I won't hide from it, either." His nod was firm. "You shouldn't." Around them, classmates approached to congratulate her. Handshakes that lingered, genuine smiles, questions about her next projects. Each interaction carried a hint of something more. respect laced with curiosity, admiration tempered with surprise. As the slideshow continued, Amber realized this wasn't just an image, it was a bridge. The barrier between who she'd been and who she was proving to be permeable. The reunion had become more than a trip down memory lane. It was a revelation of untold stories. Ethan offered his arm, and Amber accepted, feeling the connection deepen. Together, they stepped away from the screen, joining a circle of new conversations. In that moment, she sensed that the reunion's true purpose had been fulfilled, not merely to reminisce, but to unveil hidden selves and invite one another into fresh beginnings. And for Amber, the hint of something more glowed brighter than any spotlight. Amber lingered by the high-top table where hors d'oeuvres were disappearing fast. She just finished explaining a new community mural project when a familiar voice drifted over. "Well, I'll be damned," came Cassidy White's drawl, once the queen of lunchtime taunts. Cassidy leaned against the table, sipping wine, eyes studying Amber's face as if seeing her for the first time. Amber paused mid-sentence, then smiled with ease. "Hello, Cassidy." Cassidy's brow lifted. "You're really doing all that art therapy and foundation stuff." The casual remark carried no edge, just genuine surprise. Amber nodded, offering a small plate. "Yes, it's been rewarding." Cassidy glanced down at Amber's simple navy dress and sandals, then back to Amber's calm expression. "Guess I always thought you'd end up in some corporate cubicle." She laughed softly, but it wasn't cruel, more confessional. "Never pegged you for the nonprofit type." Amber tilted her head, meeting Cassidy's gaze. "I've never been much for cubicles." Her tone was light, open. Making art and helping others felt more authentic. Cassidy's mouth curved into a tentative smile. "That makes sense." She gestured toward the spread. "Mind if I join you?" Amber stepped aside, and Cassidy moved in, brushing a strand of blonde hair from her face. They stood shoulder to shoulder, the noise of the reunion fading into background warmth. Cassidy took a bite of canopy. "I've been working in marketing," she began. "Big firm. Lots of pressure. Sometimes I envy how freely you seem to follow yours." Her eyes dropped briefly, an unspoken admission of dissatisfaction. Amber offered understanding. "It's tough to find meaning in any job, but you can always change the path." Cassidy nodded, eyes brightening. "Yeah, maybe I will." She paused, then with a shrug added, "Would love to volunteer for one of your events." Amber's smile widened, a true, welcoming curve. "I'd be honored." As they talked, other classmates drifted by, noticing Cassidy's animated expression. Whispers followed. "Did you hear? And Cassidy volunteering?" But Amber and Cassidy remained focused on their exchange. Two women bridging old roles with new possibilities through a single, casual remark. And in that moment, the reunion felt ripe with promise. A soft murmur fluttered through the gym as Cassidy White walked away from Amber's side, her laughter carrying over the chatter. In its wake, small conversations sparked like kindling. Near the bleachers, Mr. Thompson turned to Mrs. Delgado. "Did you see Cassidy volunteering?" he asked, eyebrows raised. Mrs. Delgado nodded, her eyes alight with approval. "Amber's influence is spreading," she said quietly, scanning the crowd. Across the room, Julie Ramirez nudged her husband, nodding toward Amber, who stood speaking with Ethan by the trophy case. "Everyone's talking about her work now," Julie whispered. "I never realized how much she's accomplished." Her husband tilted his head, pride evident. "She's made a real impact." At the refreshment table, Raj Patel and Pete from the band exchanged glances. Raj tapped Pete's shoulder. "Think she'd let us help paint that next mural?" Pete smiled broadly. "Let's ask her before the night's over." On the opposite side, Sophie and Marlene paused mid-sip, their earlier sneers forgotten. Sophie's brow furrowed. "She's different," she admitted, voice soft. Marlene's lips parted as she chewed on the idea. "I didn't expect that." The two exchanged uncertain looks, curiosity knitting between them. New clusters formed, centering around Amber's stories. The kids whose faces blossomed with pride under her guidance. The city walls bursting with color because of her vision. A group of former athletes, once dismissive, now speculated about corporate partnerships and community events. Even Liam Carter, standing alone, tapped his chin thoughtfully, considering how Amber's programs might benefit youth in his coaching league. The DJ lowered the volume for a moment, and the principal stepped onto the small stage. He cleared his throat and smiled warmly. "Before we end the night," he said, "I want to recognize someone who's reminded us what true leadership looks like." Heads turned. Amber paused, surprised as the principal gestured toward her. A ripple of applause began, tentative at first, then swelling into a genuine ovation. Amber stepped forward, cheeks warming. In that cascade of approval, she saw transformed expressions everywhere: admiration, respect, and above all, inspiration. The ripples through the crowd carried her quiet triumph across the room, binding old judgments and new appreciation into something altogether unexpected. Amber settled onto a sunlit bench outside the school's courtyard, the late spring breeze rippling her hair as she unfolded a simple sandwich from her bag. Across the path, Ethan approached, balancing 2 takeout cups and a pair of salads. "I grabbed us lunch," he said, handing her a cup of iced tea. "Thought you might like a break from the gym." Amber smiled, tucking her hair behind her ear. "Thank you. This is perfect." They ate in companionable silence as students strolled by, their laughter echoing against brick walls. Ethan broke the quiet. "I've been thinking," he began, sipping his tea. "You've done so much with art therapy. What about expanding into school programs? I could connect you with my daughter's principal." Amber paused mid-bite, eyes brightening. "That would be amazing," she replied. "Early childhood arts integration is something I've wanted to explore." Ethan nodded, outlining contacts and possibilities. "And I know a parent-teacher group that's looking for new initiatives. They'd love your input." As they talked, the courtyard's tranquility deepened. A pair of alumni jogged past, waving hello. Nearby, a cluster of former club members gathered beneath flowering trees, noticing Amber's animated gestures as she sketched notes in a margin of a napkin. When they finished eating, Ethan leaned back with a satisfied grin. "I should get back in there," he said, nodding toward the gym doors. "But I'll send you those contacts tonight." Amber folded her napkin and tucked it into her bag. "I appreciate it," she said softly. "Truly." Ethan hesitated, then added, "By the way, a few of us are grabbing coffee tomorrow. Would you like to join? We'd love to hear more about your projects." His invitation was casual, but Amber recognized its weight, a gesture of genuine inclusion. She met his gaze and smiled. "I'd love that." As Ethan walked away, Amber watched him disappear among blooming shrubs. The simple lunch had become more than a meal. It was a bridge between reunion and renewal, opening doors to future collaborations and friendships rooted in shared purpose. And as she rose, Amber felt the promise of what lay ahead settling warmly in her chest. Amber followed the narrow hall toward the school's old administrative wing, where fluorescent lights hummed overhead and the scent of copier toner lingered. Ms. Delgado had arranged for her to see the art room, the heart of her school-based expansion plan. The door stood ajar, revealing rows of easels and bins of supplies still labeled in faded marker. Inside, the vice principal, Mr. Hargrove, met them with a welcoming nod. "Amber, thank you for coming," he said, stepping aside so she could enter. Her eyes widened as she took in the transformation. Colorful posters adorned the walls, shelves lined with paints, brushes, and jars of clay. Student artwork, bright landscapes, abstract forms, portrait sketches, hung proudly in place of peeling paint. "This is incredible," Amber breathed, running her hand along a display board. "It feels welcoming." Ms. Delgado smiled. "We wanted it to reflect the creativity you champion. Your recommendation for an art-led environment made all the difference." Amber moved to a desk where architecture plans lay spread out, detailing proposed classroom murals and portable studio carts. She picked up a blueprint labeled Outdoor Art Pavilion, imagining students painting beneath a canopy of trees. "This would change everything," she murmured, envisioning the pavilion as a haven for expression. Mr. Hargrove pointed to a wall calendar where dates for upcoming workshops were circled in bright ink. "We filled every slot," he said, Teachers are eager, and parents have volunteered to help. Amber felt a swell of pride at the tangible momentum. In the past, she'd pitched ideas that faded on paper. Here, they bloomed into real possibilities. A sudden knock announced a small group of students entering quietly. Maya's club members, eager to assist. They greeted Amber with shy smiles, offering to show her their portfolios. As she knelt to examine their sketches, their enthusiasm was infectious. One held a charcoal drawing of the old oak tree, another a watercolor of the library's stained glass window. Watching them, Amber realized this office, once a place of paperwork and policies, had become a living testament to her vision. The room pulsed with creativity and collaboration, a far cry from the sterile spaces she remembered. She straightened, meeting Ms. Delgado's admiring gaze. "This is more than I imagined," she said, voice warm. "Thank you for believing in it." As she left the office, plans in hand and heart light with possibility, Amber knew the reunion's echoes had led here, to an unexpected revelation of what could emerge when vision meets support. A week after the reunion, Amber stepped into the Hayes Art Initiative's newly renovated headquarters, anticipation fluttering in her chest. The reception area's focal point was a sleek feature wall, now adorned with 4 distinct logos: the school district's emblem, the city's community services crest, the local gallery's mark, and her own nonprofit's emblem in the center. She ran her fingers along the smooth surface, recalling the moment each organization had agreed to partner. The school district had provided space and resources, community services had arranged funding, the gallery had offered exhibition opportunities, and her foundation had woven it all together. Seeing those logos united felt like witnessing the culmination of countless meetings, proposals, and late-night brainstorming sessions. Behind her, Daniel from the reunion's organizing committee appeared, eyes shining. "It looks amazing," he said, nodding at the wall. "I knew Amber Hayes could pull this off." Amber laughed lightly. "I had a lot of help." Daniel gestured toward the logos. "All working with your vision. You brought us together." Across the room, volunteers unpacked boxes of art supplies, paints, canvases, clay. A banner hung above the far wall. "First Collaborative Workshop, Saturday, 10 a.m. Amber's gaze traveled to a stack of registration forms stamped with the same 4 logos. Each form represented a person eager to participate, bridging sectors in service of creativity. A soft murmur rose as Ms. Delgado and Mr. Hargrove arrived, followed by Raj, Maya, and several other reunion acquaintances turned collaborators. They paused before the logos, smiles broad and genuine. Ms. Delgado turned to Amber. "I never imagined our little idea would grow this big," she said softly. Amber's quiet smile held both humility and pride. "It started with simple support," she replied. "One person believing in another." She gestured toward the wall. "Now it's all of us, working together." As afternoon sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, the 4 logos seemed to glow, symbols of partnership and shared purpose. In that moment, Amber recognized how far she'd come from the girl unnoticed at reunions. Here, her vision stood at the nexus of community, education, art, and service. The wall's logos were more than brands. They represented the collective heartbeat of a promise fulfilled. And Amber, with her unassuming confidence, had woven them into one powerful story. The gymnasium lay quiet in the late afternoon light. Echoes of the reunion's laughter faded into the stillness. Amber paused at the center court line, tracing the faded mascot logo with her gaze. This space, once a stage for whispered judgments and cautious glances, now felt charged with possibility. She stepped onto the polished hardwood, heels clicking softly. Memories surfaced, the glare of fluorescent lights as students crowded the bleachers, the roar of the crowd when Amber's voice trembled through the announcer's microphone. Tonight, though, the silence was different, respectful, expectant. A soft rustle by the concession stand drew her attention. Mr. Thompson stood there, holding a stack of fold-out program booklets for the upcoming Community Art Showcase. He offered one to Amber without a word. She accepted it, fingers brushing his. His nod spoke volumes, not pity but pride. At mid-court, Amber unfolded the booklet. The cover featured a photograph of the new outdoor art pavilion, children painting under a canopy of fabric. Inside, her name appeared prominently as director. She flipped pages, reading volunteers' bios. Several familiar faces from the reunion had signed on. Cassidy offering marketing support, Raj connecting tech for a virtual gallery, Maya organizing eco-friendly materials. The gym speakers crackled to life as a maintenance worker tested the sound system for next week's gala. A single note rang out, resonant and clear, cutting through the hush. Amber closed her eyes, letting the pure tone fill her senses. No more whispering crowds, just the promise of voices raised for celebration. Footsteps approached. Ethan appeared, carrying 2 paint rollers. He paused at the half-court line. "Ready?" he asked, voice low. A mural would cover that wall, he explained, a vibrant scene depicting unity and growth. Amber smiled, rolling up her sleeves. "Let's begin." Together, they dipped rollers into buckets of azure and gold. With the first strokes on the wall, the silence in the gymnasium transformed into creation. Each sweep of paint marked not just a design, but a reclaiming of space, once a hall of judgment, now a canvas for hope. And as color spread, the gym's quiet witnessed the emergence of a new chapter for Amber and everyone who believed in her vision. The first few strokes of paint glistened in the morning sun as Amber stepped back, surveying the blank expanse she and her volunteers would transform. Each roller in her hand felt like more than a tool. It was a testament to the power of one woman's vision. Across the wall, a lone daisy bloom began to take shape in gentle curves of white and gold. Volunteers gathered around her, former classmates, students, and new supporters drawn by her passion. Cassidy guided a group arranging marketing materials for the unveiling. Raj calibrated a tablet that would project time-lapse footage of the mural's progress. Maya distributed biodegradable paint cups. Even the principal paused, clipboard in hand, offering insights on logistical details. All contributed, inspired by Amber's unwavering leadership. As she pressed roller to cinder block, memories flickered. Hallway taunts, whispered doubts, the invisible girl who always stood apart. Now, her steady determination had summoned a community willing to build something beautiful together. With every sweep of vibrant teal, she carried that history forward, weaving resilience into each layer. A song drifted through open windows, students returning from class, curious eyes widening at the unfolding artwork. They slowed, pointing and whispering, their admiration palpable. Amber caught their gazes and nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of what could happen when one person dared to act. Midway up the wall, a visitor arrived, the city's arts commissioner, drawn by news of the project. She watched Amber guide a young volunteer through a complex flower petal pattern. "You've ignited something here," the commissioner said softly. "This will inspire others to believe in their own ideas." Amber dipped her roller once more, paint soaking into its nap. "It started small," she replied, "but small steps can lead to big changes." By afternoon, the mural had blossomed into a tapestry of flowers, vines, and abstract shapes, each element symbolizing hope, unity, and transformation. Amber stood before it, roller poised but momentarily still. The wall no longer felt empty. It was alive with color and community. In that moment, Amber understood the true power of one woman, not in solitary grandeur, but in the ripple she created, drawing others in, awakening latent talents, and proving that a single spark of purpose could illuminate an entire wall, an entire town, even an entire life. The courtyard stone benches glowed in the soft evening light as Amber tucked her sketchbook beneath her arm and settled onto the nearest seat. The murmur of the city beyond the school walls was muted here, replaced by the gentle rustle of elm leaves overhead. She drew in a steady breath, letting the day's work settle in her chest. From the far gate, Cassidy appeared, hesitating before walking over. She carried 2 steaming cups of cocoa. "Thought you might need a break," she said, offering one. Amber accepted it gratefully, warming her fingers around the cup. Cassidy sank beside her, voice low. I owe you something. Amber cocked an eyebrow, surprised by the sudden gravity. Cassidy stared at the courtyard's fountain, steam twisting upward. All those years. I never apologized for what I said in the cafeteria. Her confession tumbled out. The teasing, the exclusion, the snap judgments she'd once believed harmless. I was scared of not fitting in, so I pushed you down to feel better. Amber listened as the weight of old regrets spilled into the dusk. When Cassidy finished, her eyes glistened. I've been working in marketing, but it felt empty. Seeing you tonight, seeing how you lead with kindness, it made me realize how I wasted my voice. Amber traced a pattern on the fountain's rim. We all do things we regret, she said softly. What matters is what we do next. She handed Cassidy a napkin and asked, "What do you want to do now?" Cassidy looked at the sketchbook peeking from Amber's bag and smiled bitterly. "I'd like to help with whatever you're doing. I want to use my skills for something real." Amber's eyes brightened in the lantern glow. "I'd love that." A second figure approached. Marlene, clutching her own cup, cheeks flushed with nerves. She admitted how she'd judged Amber's simple clothes without knowing her story, how unease had driven her cruelty. She too asked for a chance to make amends, to volunteer. The three women sat in the fading light, sharing regrets and hopes. One by one, they laid down burdens they'd carried since graduation, petty rivalries, old insecurities, unspoken apologies. In that courtyard, confessions wove new bonds stronger than any high school clique. As night fell and stars edged into the sky, Amber closed her sketchbook. Around her, the courtyard felt transformed, not by murals or events, but by truth spoken at last. And in that gentle circle, she saw how healing began when people dared to confess and connect beneath the open sky. Evening lights illuminated the outdoor pavilion as word spread that the mural unveiling was about to begin. A small crowd gathered on the courtyard's edge, volunteers lining the perimeter with folding chairs. Amber stood before the painted wall, now a riot of color, each stroke reflecting collective effort, and took a quiet breath. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, tapping the microphone stand. His voice carried warmth as he introduced the project's journey. From a simple reunion conversation to the transformed gym, the school art room, and finally this collaborative canvas. He gestured to Amber. "None of this happens without her vision and leadership," he said, voice steady. Amber raised her hand in thanks, scanning familiar faces, former skeptics turned supporters, students beaming with pride at their contributions, reunion classmates who had become partners. In her chest, a steady hum of gratitude and joy. A gentle hush fell as she unveiled the plaque, inscribed with her name and the words, "In honor of creativity, collaboration, and community." Then, from the back, Ethan struck a chord on his acoustic guitar. It was the song Amber had helped the reunion band arrange. Its first notes carried across the courtyard, a melody of beginnings and endings intertwined. As the chorus rose, the crowd erupted into applause, a sweeping, heartfelt sound that rolled over the pavilion like summer waves. Hands came together again and again, louder and more sustained than any clap of mockery she'd known in high school. Faces shone with reflection and celebration. Amber felt tears prick at her eyes. She lifted her gaze, returning the applause with a smile as radiant as the mural behind her. Cassidy, Maya, Raj, and other collaborators joined her side, sharing the moment. Volunteers stepped forward, offering her flowers and handmade cards. A young student pressed a paint-splattered handshake into her palm. When the final applause faded into appreciative murmurs, Amber spoke softly into the microphone. No prepared speech, just honest words. "Thank you for seeing possibility where once there was only memory. This mural is more than paint on a wall. It's proof that one person's quiet hope can ignite a community." As night settled and lanterns glowed around them, the applause lingered in her heart, an echo of transformation, a tribute to the power of unity, and a resounding affirmation that the simple woman they once mocked had become the one they could not help but celebrate. Amber sat at a small table inside the pavilion, sipping a cup of herbal tea as stragglers filtered out into the night. Around her, volunteers packed up supplies, their conversations light but thoughtful. Amid the bustle, Cassidy approached, carrying a stack of notebooks covered in doodles and notes. "I thought these might help," Cassidy said, offering them. "Lessons I've learned from watching you." Amber accepted the notebooks, thumbs brushing over pages filled with bullet points on empathy, perseverance, and collaboration, principles she demonstrated throughout the project. Maya joined them, holding her phone. "I've organized all our contacts and resources into a shared folder," she explained, "so anyone can continue building on this." Amber looked between the two women, once classmates who'd mocked or ignored her, and felt the full weight of their support. A gentle tap on her shoulder turned her toward Mr. Thompson, who placed a small wooden box on the table. Inside lay a key engraved with Community Ambassador. "For every event you lead here," he said, "consider this a symbol of how much you've given us." Amber's eyes glistened as she turned the key in her fingers. Students filed past to say goodnight. One hugged her, another asked when the next workshop would start. Each interaction reminded Amber that success wasn't about awards or applause, but about the lives touched and the seeds planted. Ethan appeared with 2 more cups of tea. "To lessons on success," he toasted quietly. Amber smiled, clinking mugs. "To lessons on success," she echoed. They lingered under the pavilion's glow as the night deepened. Amber opened one of the donated notebooks, reading, "Measure success by impact, not recognition," and beneath it, "Build bridges, not walls." She closed the book with reverence. As the last volunteers departed, Amber stood and looked around the transformed space. The mural, the logos, the empty chairs holding echoes of laughter and learning. She realized the greatest lesson on success was that it grew from humility, service, and the willingness to bring others along. With the key in her pocket and notebooks in hand, Amber stepped into the cool night air, ready to carry these lessons into every future endeavor. Months later, Amber walked through the school's front gates, momentarily transported back to that night of judgment and revelation. Today, banners announcing the Hayes Art Initiative's annual showcase fluttered in the breeze. The mural she'd helped paint graced the gym wall, bright against the red brick. The art room stood open, children's laughter drifting through its open door. She paused at the courtyard, where the pavilion's lanterns remained strung from spring workshops. A plaque beneath the elm tree bore an inscription, in honor of those who dared to see beyond first impressions. Amber's heart swelled at the memory of whispered sneers transformed into collective pride. Inside the gym, parents, students, and alumni mingled, marveling at artwork lining the walls. For logos, school district, community services, the local gallery, and the Hayes Art Initiative sat proudly above the displays. New collaborators moved between easels, renewing old partnerships and forging new ones. Amber spotted Cassidy, now coordinating volunteers with confident energy, and Priya, hosting a live painting demo with eager onlookers. She greeted Ethan and Maya at a refreshment table stocked with homemade treats. Each friend offered warm smiles and updates. A gallery exhibition opening next month, a fundraising campaign surpassing goals, a scholarship endowment in Amber's name. A group of students presented their portfolios, thanking Amber for sparking their passion. She knelt to admire their sketches, vibrant interpretations of community scenes, hope rendered in charcoal and watercolor. One shy girl slipped Amber a folded note. "You taught me to believe in my voice." "Thank you." Amber tucked it into her pocket, tears welling with gratitude. Across the room, Mr. Thompson addressed attendees through the microphone. This legacy began with a reunion and one woman's quiet conviction. Today it lives in every stroke of paint, every collaborative idea, and every life uplifted through art. The crowd erupted in applause. As the celebration continued, Amber stepped outside to the courtyard's edge. The elm leaves danced above, shadows playing across the stone benches. She breathed deeply, feeling the weight of history and the promise of tomorrow. In that moment, she understood what lasting legacy truly meant. Not fame or fortune, but the ripples of kindness and vision that continued to expand far beyond a single evening. And beneath the elm's branches, Amber Hayes smiled, knowing her reunion had grown into a timeless testament to community, creativity, and the extraordinary power of one simple woman.